Thank you so much for speaking with me. But more importantly, thank you for reaching out. For folks who watch this whole interview on Rudy Blair Entertainment Media, rudyblairmedia.com, you reached out to me through email because you saw an interview that I did, and it was with a certain individual who I have known for a very long time, who I consider very much a very close friend. And he also had done a show with somebody else that you and I both know. And they are the kind of people who give back, which is one of the reasons why you reached out, because we are going to talk about an organization that truly gives back to the community. And you know the folks who I'm talking about, sir.
Oh, absolutely, Rudy. Well, first of all, thank you for the time. I very much appreciate it. And on behalf of Journey Home Hospice, we really are looking forward to this interview. Yeah, Journey Home. Did you want me to talk about Journey Home first, or
No, let's go into the folks we talked about.
okay,
These
Andy
famous,
Kim? Yeah,
yeah.
Andy Kim and Dan Hill. Well, I saw it. I've been a fan of Dan Hill since I was about 16, so it's going back several decades. And I always wanted to meet him, and I always wanted to meet him because I've loved his music and I still play it regularly. And I finally did about a year ago at Hughes Room over on Broadview, and he just seemed like the kind of guy that you had hoped he would be, which is just genuine, decent, nice, and of course a great talent. And he had mentioned how in the early days he was knocking on doors at the record companies to try and get his music known. And he said, wasn't afraid to do it because it's the way he did it. So I used that same approach in going backstage. And I knocked at his door after the concert. And he welcomed me in. He didn't know who I was. And I just explained to him about Journey Home Hospice and would there be a chance we could get together on some kind of evening to raise money? And he said, send me an email with a link to Journey Home. And that night, Rudy, he sent me a note back saying, oh, yeah, we got to do it. And we had that happen October 1 at Hughes Room. It was sold out very quickly, of course. And as you know, it's a nice, intimate venue. And we did very well. There were a lot of generous people there in support of Journey Home Hospice. And and seeing your interview with Andy Kim, and of course, Andy, a great, great part of Canada and the music heritage that he provides and his ongoing showmanship. And of course, the 20 years of Massey Hall Christmas concert. And I saw your interview and I thought, and then you mentioned Dan, and I thought, I think I'll just send this man a note and just see if we can talk about my cause. And we do have a common interest. And by the way, I was talking to Dan the other day. He was in Montreal and he says to say hi to you.
He's a great guy. Love him so much. And glad that he was on board. And for me, definitely on board. For folks who don't know about this organization, please talk about this because, again, it is so important to the community. I don't think a lot of people even realize it because this is an organization that any one of us could be knocking on that door needing help.
You hit the nail on the head. Life can be very unpredictable, and we are a hospice that was formed just about 6 years ago under the stewardship of St. Elizabeth Healthcare Foundation. They realized there was a need to provide end of life care for the homeless in Toronto. It's crazy. We all know what the homeless situation is like in Toronto and other major cities and minor cities. But the part that really touches home and is very heartfelt is the fact that so many die on the street. If they don't die in the street, they die in a merge or in a shelter. And that's if you're lucky, you're part of that 10% that die in a merge or a shelter. And so the very small amount that get to die at Journey Home Hospice, it makes up a small amount, but I'll tell you, we serve hundreds of people a year since we've been open. And it's a very welcoming, it's a very dignified, it's a very clinically well set up organization, and it fills a need that really hasn't been filled yet. In as far as we know in Canada, there's a few places of hospices that will take in other cities take our homeless friends in, but this is devoted strictly as a hospice for those that don't have shelter, don't have an address, and by and large are diagnosed with a life-threatening disease, most of the time cancer, and their lifespan is short. But I'll tell you something, Rudy. These are good friends that are patients or residents, as I call them. They are so appreciative of what's being done for them. Oftentimes, most of them haven't had they have a room on their own. We have 13 rooms on 2 floors in Toronto at 90 Shooter Street. And they have their own room, they have a TV. There's nothing they don't get. And the care is wonderful. And they just feel like, and most of the time, they don't have family or friends either. So we are there right till the end. Our volunteers will be with, nobody dies alone. Even if the nurses and the PSWs are very busy, I'm on call, for example, as well as going in Mondays. But if somebody's close to the end, I will sit with them. Others will sit with them. They're not alone. Nobody has to be afraid or concerned. So for me, I moved back to Toronto from London, Ontario, where I was doing business, and I had worked with the homeless there, but never in this capacity. And it just opened my eyes to what's happening out there or not happening, and how great this organization is. So it's compelled me to want to do more for it and get it promoted. Uh, it, it's not a bureaucratic organization. It has nothing to do with that. It's absolutely a place that every dollar that goes to Journey Home goes right to Journey Home. There's no middle people. The St. Elizabeth Foundation makes sure that everything is in place for that to happen. And so it's the goodness of the workers and the volunteers and the donors and that make it happen. And I hate to say it, but it could grow. We could
Yeah.
have 5 times the number of floors. We're constantly busy, and our folks. Some people ask, where do you find out about your residents? Well, we have a social worker on staff, and she liaisons with the hospitals and the shelters, and so from there she's able to sort of triage a way to determine who we could fit into the facility next and that kind of thing.
You talked about dignity, which is what you folks provide. Can you talk a little bit more about what these folks experience being there? Because I did see the short video that you sent me. There's art, there's food, there's companionship. There are a lot of things that go on there, as you said, in the outside world would not be happening.
Oh, absolutely not. Uh, Interesting point, and I'll talk about that for sure. But sometimes when residents come to us, their prognosis, usually it's under 3 months that you have to live in a hospice environment. And that's what determines you to be able to go to a hospice. Oftentimes they come in now, they're getting care, food, nourishment, socialization, friendship, spiritual friendship, that their lives continue longer. Ultimately, they pass. But so what do they get? They get a lot of things. We have a music program. We have games that we play with them, board games, reading. We had one resident that loved music, and he loved all the greats that you have interviewed and that we all love. And he plays guitar, and he's not with us anymore. But we worked. One of our guys that runs the music program worked with him to record a song. Yeah, and they did. And then they put on a small concert at Journey Home. I'd never seen anybody so happy in my life, and this man came from terrible circumstances to that. And I think all those services and just the closeness, and we really become like family. And that's one. I'll be honest, that's one of the hard things to deal with as a volunteer, is because you do become friends with our residents. You get to know whatever they want to tell you about their lives, and and you have to kind of let it go at some point. But yeah, there's lots there. There really is. There's if they're able, we'll take them out in their wheelchair, and we have a deck on the top floor in the summertime. Well, last summer we watched the air show. for those that were able to sit up on the 11th floor of our building.
Wow.
Just things like that, and special times like Christmas, everything's taken care of. We have great donors out there that make sure that there are gifts, and we have food catered in for the residents, and all the special occasions are well taken care of. So folks just really feel a part of a community that they hadn't been for really a long time.
And let's really make this point clear. I mean, there are people who are watching this and they go, okay, these things are going on, but they think it's going on with somebody else. We have to really make this clear. This can be a situation that can happen to me. It could happen to you. It could happen to anyone. We don't know what goes on in this economic world and things like that, mentally, financially. Anybody could end up in this type of situation, and having a place like this is probably one of the most important organizations to have out there because, again, it can happen to any one of us.
So you just brought up an amazingly important point, and I won't use for confidentiality. I won't use names or whatever, but I'm going to give you a bit of a profile of a few of the residents we've had over the years. In fact, the very first one, a woman from Serbia. Uh, the very first person I spent the last hours with when she passed, and it was a bit of a shock for me. I've had family members pass away, but when it's somebody you don't know or you're just getting to know, and then they pass, it's kind of a little bit shocking. But she was a scientist from Serbia. She had a master's in science, a lovely woman, came to Canada to try and make it here. And just one thing led to another, and life threw at her some, tough luck. And she ended up on the streets, not being able to pay her bills, and then gets hit with a cancer diagnosis. So, okay, so there's one profile. Another man, wonderful fellow from the UK, a professor, a PhD in psychology. And life just threw a curveball at him. And he ended up in Toronto. And one thing led to another, and on the streets, and then getting also cancer. So it can happen to anybody. Anything can happen to anybody. I mean, it's interesting. I think we all, even myself, have this idea of the homeless as being, well, they're just that segment of the society. They're just they chose that, or that's who they are, kind of thing. It's not. It's so untrue. It's just so untrue. And when you see, and I've been involved with the homeless in other areas, in other cities and stuff like that, a lot of folks are trying so hard. They really are. And nobody, listen, I don't, and mental health is, of course, a key part of why folks kind of go off the rails. We've also had folks that, have been street people for one man for 20 years. That's all he knows, and he doesn't want anything different. So the profiles are all different, but the bottom line is humanity's not. And, you'd love to house everybody. You would love to feed everybody. But I think at the end of life, at least we can give some dignity, comfort, support, and pain support, and nursing and doctor support, and all that good stuff, which I think is the very least people should be able to have in life, And so, as I say, we could fill 3 or 4 floors regularly, but that's not, we just we just kind of just take the situation, and every day is a new day, and we have the infrastructure and we have the support, but we have to go after getting more and more support, because quite frankly, every dollar goes right to is spent on journey home. There's none of this 20% for overhead and whatever. And there are some days, where we go, okay, that fridge is pretty bare. We would be careful when we go shopping. Let's be careful, because we don't want to overspend. We got to make sure it, lasts for X period of time. But we do a good job at it. And I got to tell you, if other institutions ran as well as Journey Home. And listen, I've been in business for all my career, and I know the frustrations in the public sector as well. But if other institutions ran as well as Journey Home Hospice, man, there'd be a lot less problems out there. And I mean that sincerely, because they really know what they're doing. They have it just down to a compassionate science almost, you know. And you know.
So how can we donate? How can we help? Do we donate finances? Do we donate clothing? Do we donate food? What exactly can we do right now?
So really, the food thing we take care of through the financial donations, and pretty much clothing. But I'll tell you one thing. Now, our website is journeyhomehospice.ca. So that's journeyhomehospice.ca. And if folks are kind enough to look it up, they'll see that every 2 weeks, some people can only come once a month. So in order to manage that, that there's somebody always around helping out. By the way, what volunteers do is they clean, they cook, they provide support with our patients and our residents, and we just sit with them and we chat and we fellowship. But the other thing I'd say is yeah, donations of financial support would be great, and there's a easy access on that website to donate. And one of the things I think we had a great concert with Dan Hill back in October 1st. Dan very kindly uh, offered to do a benefit concert at Hughes Room, and we were sold out because when you have Dan Hill's name,
Yeah.
it's what happens. And it was wonderful. People were generous. It was a wonderful concert, and I think we're going to reproduce that for next year. Maybe hit a bigger venue because the people want to see him, and his support is so instrumental to us. So looking to do other things as well to try and raise some money or put some kind of event together in support of Journey Home. And yeah, that's what we need. Money.
My friend, thank you so much for this interview. Thank you for making this aware for myself and for many others who probably didn't even have a clue. So I think this is probably extremely important, especially not just this time of year, throughout the year.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
so thank you for reaching out. Thank you for discussing this with me. And before we wrap up, any last words from you, sir?
No, well, just to say, you know what, the world's in a turmoil. There's lots going on all around the place, but there's a lot of good people out in the world and in Toronto. The the people. I mean, I'm a native of Toronto. I've seen it grow, and I can't help but think, well, we have some really good people that really help. And just keep it up, Toronto, because you're a great city, and we look forward to any support that folks can offer us. So.
My friend, thank you again for the interview.
Thank you, Rudy. I really appreciate your time.